Crystal always had a great spirit about her. She knew what she wanted. She went for it.
About to jump out of a perfectly
Jumping
good airplane.
out of a plane.
She could take care of herself.
I didn't punk out like a sissy girl.
She was obviously very beautiful, very attractive, but there was something about her. She radiated light. I worked with Crystal as a flight attendant. She was definitely a goofball, and she would even describe herself as a dork.
I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock the microphone.
She kind of has like a gypsy soul, like she was a flight attendant, you know, she just likes traveling.
I've been dating Crystal McDowell for a few weeks now. We'd both been divorced, and we knew exactly what we wanted. You know, when you first meet somebody and you're kind of on cloud nine, that's kind of how we were.
Tropical storm Harvey is expected to strengthen into a hurricane before making landfall in Texas. Hurricane warnings in place along most of the Texas coast.
Friday morning, August 25th, is when she left the house.
She was actually living with her ex-husband. She was living in the master bedroom downstairs, and he had moved into a bedroom upstairs.
He had such a passion of love for her. It was almost like an obsessive, controlling love.
She sent me a few text messages, and I replied back, but I never got a reply after that. So I thought maybe she was just preoccupied with getting ready for the storm.
Across southern Texas, grocery store shelves are bare. People are rushing to stock up on last-minute supplies.
At that point in time, I just started trying to find relatives or friends to reach out to them to see if they knew where she was. And that's when I reached out to Jeff Walters. He's her uncle.
I get messages from her every morning. I get messages all throughout the day. She's one of the most responsible people that I know. She never loses contact with us.
Chambers County Sheriff's Office.
It's my niece.
Okay, your niece.
No one can get a hold of her. No one has heard from her. I'm really concerned.
It's a serious storm. It's going to last 4 or 5 days, and quite frankly, this is day one.
This morning, police are searching for a Texas mother who mysteriously disappeared before Harvey hit.
We are hampered by some of the flood issues, but we are as aggressive as ever trying to locate Crystal McDowell.
I knew she wouldn't run away. She would never be that type of person. So that was...
Would she have ever left her kids?
No.
Happy birthday to you.
Automatically, as a sheriff, I know that mothers don't leave their children. And there's obviously never a good time for anybody to become missing. But the timing was terrible.
It was the morning of August 25th, 2017. A massive storm, Hurricane Harvey, was heading straight for Texas. Crystal McDowell typed a fast text to her ex-husband, checking to see if he stored drinking water for the kids. Next, she stepped into her black Mercedes and steered toward his house. She mapped out her day, showing a house, finishing her tasks, yet she never arrived. She ignored all of her calls, and she failed to return home. While the storm began to pour down, Crystal appeared to vanish into thin air. It required unseen security footage, a young girl's dark memory, and a grim find in the woods to ultimately uncover the facts. This is the true tale of Crystal McDowell, and the second her life ended. Crystal McDowell entered the world on October 26, 1979, in Baytown, Texas. Her younger days were full of heavy struggles. Raised by her parents, Pamela and Anthony, Crystal's home life was filled with chaos. Both battled heavy drug habits and failed to build a safe space. Sadly, by the age of 11, Crystal buried both parents from deadly overdoses within months of each other. After they passed away, she was cared for by her grandmother and then brought up by her uncle, Jeff Walters. Through all the pain, Crystal was famous for her bright grin, piercing blue eyes, and a warm charm that could fill up any space. Focused, happy, and brave, Crystal worked as a flight attendant, a role that perfectly matched her soul. For years, she flew across the country, meeting new crowds and friends. Somewhere along her path, Crystal found Stephen Wayne McDowell, a guy 7 years her senior. Known to be quiet and calm despite his large size, Stephen won over Crystal. After seeing each other for a while, they wed in April 2007. Stephen raised a daughter from an older relationship. He served as a shipping manager, yet failed to hold down a regular paycheck. Because of this, Crystal turned into the main earner. While she grew in her job, Stephen stayed unsteady with work, creating a clear gap in their relationship. The couple had 2 children together. On the outside, their household appeared peaceful, yet behind closed doors, friction grew, mostly around Crystal's constant work trips. Stephen reportedly grew more jealous, suspecting her of cheating during her flights, even though no proof of cheating existed. Friends saw that Crystal loved her family deeply and put safety first, given her hard past. In 2016, Crystal made a big choice. Following 15 successful years as a flight attendant, she left the air and joined her family's real estate business. This allowed her to spend more days with her children and provided a sense of lasting peace. Her uncle, Jeff Walters, proud of her choice, took her in as part of the 3rd generation in their family property work. Crystal did great fast in her new job. Her charm, hard work, and drive made her a rising name in the local house market. Behind closed doors, she whispered to close friends that changing jobs also served a careful goal. She believed living locally would help her win full care of her children if she and Stephen split. By February 2017, the marriage hit a breaking point. Crystal filed for divorce, naming years of heavy strain. On March 20th, she dialed 911 to report that Stephen made threats toward her and their kids. Police handled the situation as a warning instead of a crime. At that moment, no custody rules were set, meaning Stephen kept the legal right to stay with his children. Officers attempted to locate him, yet their efforts failed. A few days later, he brought back the children, and Crystal chose not to file charges, picking instead to calm the situation for her kids. Those near Crystal say she tried everything to keep the divorce calm. Her goal was always the safety of her children. Stephen's older daughter felt shaken by the events and asked her dad why he was acting out. He claimed to feel angry over alleged affairs Crystal had during their marriage, claims that no one in her circle believed. People close to the pair agreed the bond was toxic for years. Even Stephen's daughter shared that while she and Crystal got along great, the marriage was always rocky. Despite their issues, the divorce completed in June 2017 seemed calm on the top. In fact, Crystal helped Stephen locate and buy a new house while she worked on updating her own. Yet under the calm look, deeper problems stayed. Crystal often asked her family not to mention her plans or outings to Stephen, fearing he would snap. Even an innocent thing like meeting a friend could set him off. Even though they were legally divorced, Stephen seemed unable to accept reality. His social media showed a creepy pattern. Shortly after the divorce, he changed his profile picture to an image of a tombstone, then to one of Santa Muerte, before changing it back to a picture of him and Crystal. His posts made it look like a happy family. Meanwhile, Crystal kept supporting Stephen emotionally, checking on him often. He promised her he was moving on and fixing his life, but his actions said something else. One of Crystal's aunts noticed that Stephen posted about bringing Crystal coffee in bed, acting as if they were still together. In one last attempt to keep a calm bond for the kids, Crystal planned a cruise with Stephen and the children, but the closeness only made things more confusing. Then, in August 2017, everything shifted. Crystal, now 37, met Paul Hargrave, a local jeweler and single dad. Paul was charming, driven, and loved to travel just like Crystal. They clicked right away, and for the first time in a long time, Crystal felt truly happy. She told her family about Paul, but asked them to keep it secret until she found the right time to tell Stephen. Even though they were divorced, she still feared his reaction. That fear did not stop her from sharing her joy online. On August 23rd, she posted that she had never been this happy and that her heart was full of joy. "God is so good," she wrote. 2 days later, on August 25th, Hurricane Harvey was approaching. Crystal woke up at Paul's house, getting ready for the storm and her day. At 7:01 a.m., she texted Stephen to ask if he had enough water for the kids, telling him she was driving to his house to stay with them. She planned to show a house right after. Security cameras at Paul's house captured the final images of Crystal that morning, first in the kitchen, then walking outside in heels with her phone as she got into her black Mercedes-Benz. She was never seen again. Later that day, her uncle Jeff Walters grew worried. They worked together in real estate and talked all the time. He called her over and over to say the house showing was canceled due to the storm. When she did not answer, Jeff reached out to Stephen, who replied with a weird text sent from Crystal's phone at 9:30 a.m., claiming she was taking the kids to Dallas. Jeff knew right away something was wrong. Crystal never changed plans without telling him, and her phone was her whole life. Fearing the worst, he called the police to report her missing before noon that same day. On August 26th, as floodwaters from Hurricane Harvey swept through Houston, Jeff Walters and 2 family members confronted Stephen McDowell. Stephen claimed Crystal had not been to his house for over a week, but his daughter told Jeff Walters otherwise. She had hugged her mother the day before. That same day, a sheriff deputy visited Stephen McDowell's home for a welfare check. When authorities entered Stephen McDowell's home, they found not only Crystal's black dress in the washing machine, but also her purse and handbag. Clear signs she had recently been there. For her uncle Jeff Walters, who had helped raise her, it was undeniable. Stephen McDowell was involved in her disappearance. But the timing could not have been worse. Hurricane Harvey had devastated the region. Many law enforcement officers, first responders, and even district officials were dealing with flooded homes and emergency rescues. As a result, the investigation stalled before it could even begin. Desperate for answers, Jeff Walters turned to the media, hoping to raise awareness and generate leads. But his efforts were drowned out, literally, by round-the-clock storm coverage. With days passing and no progress, he hired a private investigator. Frustrated by the silence from local authorities, this move sparked backlash. The local police chief and district attorney strongly objected to an outside investigator entering Crystal's home, arguing that critical evidence could be compromised or destroyed. Tensions between the McDowell family, law enforcement, and even local media in Houston escalated. Refusing to back down, Jeff Walters and Crystal's new partner, Paul Hargrave, teamed up to raise a $15,000 reward for any credible information. They launched a social media campaign that finally drew public attention. But in the eyes of investigators, suspicion fell not only on Stephen McDowell, but also on Jeff Walters and Paul Hargrave. Despite Jeff Walters' relentless search for Crystal, law enforcement treated him with skepticism. Whispers about his private life, namely his same-sex relationships, circulated in the conservative town of Baytown. Some believe those biases colored the way authorities viewed his involvement. The local police commander even dismissed Jeff Walters' concerns in a national broadcast, calling him overly emotional and an obstacle to the case. Paul Hargrave was not spared either. After submitting to a polygraph with inconclusive results, his credibility was questioned. He worsened things in the investigators' eyes by sending surveillance footage from his home to news stations instead of turning it over directly to law enforcement. Paul Hargrave defended his actions, saying he tried to provide the videos to the sheriff's office but felt ignored, so he took his case to the public to clear his name. And then there was Stephen McDowell. Despite his emotionally manipulative behavior, threatening self-harm if Crystal ever left him, he was seen by investigators as polite, helpful, and cooperative. While family and friends described the marriage as deeply unhealthy and marked by control, authorities did not view Stephen McDowell as a potential threat or a man seeking revenge over the divorce. That all began to change on Tuesday, August 29th. As the floodwaters receded, a family friend spotted Crystal McDowell's black Mercedes-Benz parked outside a run-down motel, an area flagged during the online campaign. The car doors were unlocked, and the keys sat in the console. Investigators believed it had been staged for theft, but due to the storm's impact, the flooded lot had made the car inaccessible. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses showed Crystal McDowell's car entering the motel lot at 6:37 a.m. on August 26th, the day she vanished. Just 5 hours later, Stephen McDowell was seen on camera at a nearby gas station. He did not buy gas. Instead, he drove toward the motel, seemingly checking to see if the car remained untouched. Even more chilling, other surveillance captured a hooded figure matching Stephen McDowell's build riding a bicycle through the rain near the motel that same morning. The clues were adding up, and for the first time, all eyes turned to Stephen McDowell, not as a grieving ex-husband, but as a potential suspect in a case that had stayed quiet for far too long. The investigation took a dramatic turn when surveillance footage from a Walmart located just across the highway from the motel where Crystal McDowell's car was found saw a man resembling Stephen McDowell purchasing a bicycle early on the morning of August 26, 2017. He paid in cash, and the timing aligned perfectly with the sighting of a hooded figure on a bike near the scene. Despite this damning evidence, Stephen McDowell denied any involvement in Crystal McDowell's disappearance. Authorities, citing a lack of direct proof, allowed him to return home with his children. Crystal McDowell's family was outraged. Jeff Walters reminded the district attorney that Crystal McDowell had previously filed a report stating Stephen McDowell had threatened to harm their children if she ever left him. To Jeff Walters, the man's mental and emotional instability was undeniable. It was not until September 8th, nearly 2 weeks after she vanished, that the district attorney finally intervened. The children were placed in protective custody, and Stephen McDowell was brought in for questioning. Yet even then, Stephen McDowell dictated the terms. He asked to return home for one final night to put things in order and promised to confess the next morning. Jeff Walters and other loved ones were furious. They believed this unsupervised time could give Stephen McDowell an opportunity to take his own life and escape justice. On September 9, 2017, Stephen McDowell kept his word. He returned to the station and confessed. He told investigators that during a heated argument, Crystal McDowell informed him she was taking her new boyfriend, Paul Hargrave, on an upcoming family trip instead of him. She had just returned from spending time with Paul Hargrave, which enraged Stephen McDowell. As their children slept upstairs, he attacked her from behind and strangled her to death. After the murder, Stephen McDowell wrapped her body in a blanket, placed it in the trunk of his car, and before sunrise, drove to a wooded area near his home where he disposed of her remains. Even with the confession, Stephen McDowell refused to disclose the location of the body unless prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. Given the damage caused by Hurricane Harvey and the time that had passed, authorities feared the body would be impossible to locate without his help. They agreed to the deal. Later that day, Stephen McDowell led authorities to a remote, overgrown area. Crystal McDowell's remains were found in an advanced state of decomposition. Stephen McDowell, then 44, was charged with first-degree murder. Bail was set at $500,000, which he was unable to pay. Beyond the jealousy and rage, the case revealed a more sobering truth. Without Crystal McDowell, Stephen McDowell had no means of financial support for himself or his children. Justice, however, moved slowly. The trial did not begin until June 2019. During that time, Stephen McDowell showed no remorse. In court, he attempted to portray himself as a broken man, claiming he acted in a sudden fit of passion, a legal strategy in Texas that, if accepted, could drastically reduce his sentence. He even alleged that Crystal McDowell's death resulted from a consensual encounter gone wrong. But the prosecution dismantled this narrative, emphasizing the long-standing emotional abuse and control he had exerted throughout their relationship. Stephen McDowell's legal team tried to smear Crystal McDowell's reputation, introducing unverified texts and claims of infidelity. But those closest to her stood firm. They painted a very different picture. Crystal McDowell was vibrant, caring, and deeply committed to her children. They testified about the dysfunction and manipulation she endured for years. One of the most heartbreaking moments during the trial came when Mandy Avalos, Crystal McDowell's lifelong friend and guardian of her children, took the stand and shared something devastating. In December 2017, Maui, then just 5 years old, confided in Mandy Avalos that she was ready to reveal her secret. Mandy Avalos had no idea what to expect, gently encouraging the girl to speak. She listened in shock as Maui described waking up the morning her mother vanished. She recalled hearing her parents fighting. She wandered past the bathroom and into the bedroom. There she saw Stephen McDowell push Crystal McDowell onto the bed and place his hands over her nose and mouth. Maui stood at the edge of the bed as her mother looked at her until her eyes stopped moving. Then Stephen McDowell turned to his daughter, told her to go upstairs, and warned her never to speak about what she saw. Mandy Avalos immediately alerted authorities. Maui was placed into trauma counseling, but the emotional wounds ran deep. Another key witness for the prosecution was Melissa Cherry, Crystal McDowell's close friend and cousin. She recalled helping Crystal McDowell move out of the home when tensions with Stephen McDowell became unbearable, and then helping her move back in when Stephen McDowell threatened to end his life if she did not return. Melissa Cherry testified that after the divorce, Stephen McDowell continued to manipulate Crystal McDowell emotionally, even starving himself to make her feel responsible for his well-being. The day after Crystal McDowell went missing, Melissa Cherry and Jeff Walters visited Stephen McDowell's home. He was pacing nervously, trembling, and crying. Maui told them she had seen her mom the day before, then pointed to a black dress in a closet and said, "The bad spirits took her." The scene was chilling. Melissa Cherry and Jeff Walters immediately called the police from outside the home, begging them to remove Stephen McDowell from the children's lives, but their pleas were ignored. Melissa Cherry also testified about the family cruise Stephen McDowell had proposed, a last-ditch effort to stage a peaceful goodbye. Crystal McDowell reluctantly agreed, but made it clear, no threats, no manipulation, no harm. As the trip neared, another argument, this time over money, convinced her to cancel. She realized Stephen McDowell was not trying to say goodbye. He wanted to win her back. Then came one of the most damning testimonies. An inmate who had shared a cell with Stephen McDowell revealed that Stephen McDowell had confessed in detail to killing Crystal McDowell. The motive, a text message from another man. The inmate recalled Stephen McDowell saying he used zip ties to bind Crystal McDowell's hands after she died, a detail only the forensic team had previously confirmed. Texas Department of Public Safety officials confirmed other pieces of Stephen McDowell's confession. He told them Crystal McDowell arrived early on August 25, 2017. They fought. She told him she never truly loved him and that he needed to move on. In a rage, he strangled her in the bedroom. The 5-day trial ended swiftly. In just 3.5 hours, the jury found Stephen McDowell guilty of first-degree murder. On September 10, 2019, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He must serve at least 25 years before being eligible for parole, making his potential release date 2042. Crystal McDowell's family was devastated by what they saw as a lenient sentence. Her uncle, Jeff Walters, shouted in court that Stephen McDowell deserved worse. Others were frustrated, believing a life sentence or the death penalty should have been on the table, but those options had been taken off due to the deal Stephen McDowell struck in exchange for revealing where he had hidden Crystal McDowell's body. The family's biggest concern, however, was not the length of the sentence. It was the emotional toll on the children. Despite being surrounded by love, Maui and Madden had suffered an unimaginable loss. Crystal McDowell had always centered her life around them, and now they were left navigating trauma most adults could not bear. By 2020, Mandy Avalos, who had taken in the children immediately after Crystal McDowell's murder, was taking steps to adopt them legally. Regardless of their past, Mandy Avalos remained Crystal McDowell's most trusted person, and her devotion to the children was unwavering.